Hello, real estate friends. Tracy Thrower Conyers back with episode 2 of the Beach Cities Trendline, a weekly newsletter and podcast dedicated to residential real estate trends, especially as they pertain to the beach cities of Los Angeles. If you like what I have to say today, please consider subscribing at thetracytalks.com. Please know that I personally write and produce the Trendline and not AI or junior staff. If I ever use AI or another person for any segment, I will let you know. This week, the big trend on my mind continues to be the changes coming to the industry in August, courtesy of the recent commission lawsuit. This week, I'm talking about whether buyer agents will be obsolete in the new normal. So let's get to it. The recent NAR lawsuits stirred up a lot of controversy, and it's no wonder given the amount of misinformation being pumped out by the mainstream media. I've personally viewed countless hours of YouTube videos from all manner of providers, from real estate agents to real estate lawyers and others. I can't even count the number of hours I've spent reading comments to those same videos. And the comments on those videos by the public have been overwhelmingly negative regarding real estate agents. I guess I've been spoiled getting to work with mostly professional agents who fully earn their commission. But to read these comments, agents suck everywhere. I'll try not to take that personally. Sigh. The craziest line of comments I've read is about whether anybody even needs an agent in the age of the internet. Seriously, people are saying that, and in no small number. So is everything a homebuyer needs on the internet? Of course, everything is there somewhere, but how is the average consumer who rarely buys a property supposed to judge the source, even if they are inclined to spend hours and hours gathering all the information? Should we just assume that Zillow has everything? Whether they do or not, Zillow is selling leads, and therefore they have an agenda that may not be aligned with consumers. What about Redfin? Again, they have an agenda as a large broker. Their tools are more impressive than most brokers, but there is nobody in the background trying to keep the materials balanced and helpful specifically for buyers. What about the MLS? Well, MLSs are privately owned and they show listings, and not all the listings, but they definitely don't have any educational materials to offer. Maybe we should leave buyers to work with AI bots. Yeah, right. So while everything is out there somewhere, as with all other research, you have to know what questions to ask, and then you have to be able to analyze the results that come back to you. And what does a buyer agent even do? The idea that everything is available on the internet really comes from the idea that buyer agents simply open doors and let people in to look at pretty houses. But finding pretty houses is really only the first step in the process. And even though most buyers do set out looking for pretty houses, a lot of them have to end up considering something a little less than pretty to meet their budgetary need. I've compiled a sample list of the ways that agents help buyers before they actually find the one that they want to make an offer on. This list includes advising on the pros and cons of different neighborhoods, lending experience and expertise as professionals constantly in the market to consumers who rarely buy properties, using experience to recommend search area expansions, tapping networks developed over time for listings not yet on the MLS, connecting buyers with lenders who have a successful track record of funding loans in a variety of circumstances, organizing showings and home tours, providing professional feedback on properties toured, helping buyers evaluate properties within the parameters of their specific goal, and providing a check on the emotions that run rampant in a personal decision like buying an expensive home. And that's all before the buyers even find a property to make an offer on. Once they find the one, and hopefully it's the one they get, because this process can go on over and over depending on how competitive the market is for buyers. But I've also compiled a list of ways that agents help after finding the one. Sizing up the seller and the listing agent to find negotiation advantages, pricing an offer in a way that interests the seller without overpaying, offering experience and data to back up the price recommendation, advising the buyer not to show excess proof of funds with an offer, explaining the implications of multiple offers, explaining special seller demands like leasing back the property or otherwise staying on the property after the close of escrow without the buyer's authorization. And yes, I had that happen in a deal and it wasn't pretty. Negotiating a favorable price and terms in a competitive offer scenario, explaining various contractual contingencies and how they impact pricing and timing, explaining the terms of a rather lengthy purchase contract, such as the implications of an arbitration clause, advising the buyer on the buying process and the associated opportunities and pitfalls, explaining closing costs, obtaining utility bills if desired, keeping the buyer on top of contractual deadlines, providing data to appraisers when appraisals come back low and threaten to blow up the deal, helping the buyer negotiate escrow and troubleshoot inevitable surprises, helping the buyer read and understand property disclosures, helping the buyer read and understand HOA disclosures, helping the buyer read and understand natural hazards disclosures, helping the buyer understand title insurance and the title report that will come back on the property, helping the buyer acquire property insurance in a very tough insurance environment, helping the buyer understand the various ways to hold title, arranging inspections, usually on a very tight time frame, helping the buyer understand the inspection reports and evaluate additional reports that may be needed, helping the buyer negotiate repairs and or modifications to the contract depending on what comes back in the inspection reports, helping the buyer evaluate other risks with the property. Bad neighbors and barking dogs, anybody? Helping the buyer understand the loan process and field buyer questions about the same, wrangling a rogue lender who is missing deadlines, facilitating the final walkthrough and other closing support. This is just what I came up with off the top of my head as I was writing this article. And all of these are things that have become issues in deals that I've worked on. The list can only get longer with more consideration. In fact, the NAR also reports that consumers count on their agents to protect them from scams, which are running rampant in real estate right now, especially wire fraud. So you see, buyer agents do much more than open doors to pretty houses. I've often thought that the buyer agent works even harder than the listing agent does. I know that listing agents would argue with me, and I am a listing agent also, but honestly, you're dealing with one owner and one set of issues, while buyer agents have to contend with one set of clients, but often lots of different properties. It's been a source of personal angst knowing that I've encountered listing agents who are keeping more than half the commission for themselves. You see, commissions, which have historically been spelled out in listing agreements, are not public. The only public component is what the seller is offering to the buyer agent and what is listed in the MLS. But come August 17th, that won't be public either. In fact, for a consumer lawsuit, the outcome I find to be surprisingly not transparent and taking us back many years in strides we've made for protecting consumers in real estate. Will we start seeing more attorneys in real estate representing buyers rather than a buyer agent? One suggestion I've seen floated in the public comments are that an attorney can review a contract for an hourly rate and cost you substantially less than a real estate agent. First, I would ask, how much is that attorney charging? Because that's an important factor if you're going to do any kind of comparison. Second, what about the rest of the list I provided above? An attorney is not going to have the daily market experience an agent has when it comes to understanding the value of the property in a dynamic market and then tailoring the offer accordingly. And then there is the whole idea of getting through escrow with all the questions and the raft of paperwork that needs to be explained. This isn't part of reviewing a contract, or if an attorney did bundle these kinds of questions into a package? Would buyers be afraid to ask questions for fear of running up the clock? What about arranging inspectors on a 10-day inspection contingency? What about defending the offer price when the appraisal comes back low? Are these all part of reviewing a contract? Even if an attorney were willing to bundle services, these aren't really in their wheelhouse. No, I don't think the lawyer idea has been completely thought through by the commenters floating the idea. And can you imagine the tab for the list that I provided above at $300 an hour? I would say you won't save much money, if any, but you will be losing important day-to-day experience in the real estate market. On the other hand, if you like that idea, you can definitely hire me. I am a broker and an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. I have not kept my license active, but I do think like a lawyer, absolutely. But I'm not going to work for you hourly. I gave up timesheets a long time ago for a reason. So what do you think? Are buyer agents irrelevant, or are they going to become irrelevant in the new normal? I'd really like to hear your thoughts in the comments. I want to continue this conversation because I think it's important. Next week, I'll take a dive into new buyer-broker agreements and potential compensation arrangements because come August 17th, every buyer is going to have to sign some kind of agreement with an agent if they want to use that agent for services. If you have questions about this episode and how these developments might be impacting your own home buying or home selling plans, I invite you to drop by my Zoom office hours every Thursday from 10 a.m. to noon and Sundays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Use the link siliconbeachzoom.com to find me. A couple of community trend lines are provided in the written newsletter. Specific community trend lines for any community in the Beach City are available on request. The trend lines in the written newsletter this week show listing inventory is up in most neighborhoods, but so is median price. In the Beach Cities, each community has a unique trend, and I urge you to investigate that and to contact me for a special report. On another topic, I want to report that my team and I have been working overtime to develop a new program in response to the changes coming to the industry in August. I'm very excited about this initiative. I've given a lot of thought to these changes, what it's going to look like for buyers, and how I might be able to make the biggest contribution to the success of buying consumers. I also want to mention a couple of headlines that caught my attention last week in the news. We've got Southern California homes are at a record. Could relief be on the way? No. That's the upshot, but if you want to read the article, please. With prices up, buyers check out. Yes, sales have slowed down tremendously. It's not just the prices. I think it's also the interest rates, but that's the headline. Home sales fall to historically low level. Yes, that is definitely going on. Mortgage rates fall back as data suggests the economy is cooling. That's been an interesting story to follow because the classic data markers are saying that inflation is not cooling fast enough. But then there is some discussion by various pundits that maybe the classic markers aren't really the accurate way to measure the story because of our unique circumstances given the once-in-a-100-year pandemic. There was an article called Can Rates Keep Falling? And then the last one that I wanted to point out is when will the Fed's moves alleviate the lock-in effect? If you don't know, the lock-in effect is all of the people who refied at the historically low levels and don't want to give up their mortgages to move and take on a new higher mortgage. Interestingly, I did see a story last week. I didn't know this, but Canada uses 5-year mortgages. So they have a huge issue coming up with a lot of people that have to renew their mortgages who took low rate mortgages, and they're going to be shocked with their new payments. The banks in Canada are starting to sock away reserves in anticipation of something like a market crash up there. Let's see how long it takes various clickbait social media posters to say, Canada's got a crisis, are we next, or something similar. But that's related to a completely different issue that doesn't apply here. Check out the written newsletter for the links to these stories. Also in the written newsletter are links to social platforms and real-life events where you can find me in the coming week. If these are places that you hang out, I hope that you'll seek me out and come say hi. Until next week, be well, and please tell a few friends about the Trendline. Trendlines are fundamental to choosing a home buying or home selling negotiation strategy. Anybody with plans to buy or sell this year should join us for this important conversation.